Previously in part 1, I was the desert's fiercest wind, until they clipped my wings and caged me in the East Palace as a forgotten consort. For years, I hid my warrior soul behind silk robes, until the only person who truly saw me, the young Prince Lucas Lee, was inches away from a brutal death. I had no choice. I drew my bow, revealing a lethal, forbidden mastery that stunned the entire Imperial Court. But in this city of shadows, such power is a death sentence. A mysterious letter soon lured me into a trap. Now I've woken up bound in a caravan racing toward the border. A stranger claims my family are traitors, and he is my only savior. Am I finally going home to the Jade Gate Pass, or am I being led into a deeper, more deadly conspiracy? Chapter 3. The moment I heard that, I went on alert. Third brother didn't have a leg injury at all. The one with an injured foreleg was an old war horse he used to keep, a horse that had been on the battlefield with him. Everyone in the army knew it. But by then, they'd already taken me out of Chandan. This place was remote. Escaping would be anything but easy. To avoid alarming them, and to keep from being tied up again, I could only play along. I followed him to the campfire and sat down, resting against a large tree. Nathan Zhao exchanged a look with that foreign leader, then handed me water and some dry rations. I ate a few bites of flatbread and pretended to drink. Then I leaned against the tree and closed my eyes. After a while, I heard the foreign leader ask, "Is she asleep?" Then I heard Nathan call to me, "Miss? Miss?" I didn't answer. I knew they'd put a sleeping drug in the water. Fourth brother had warned me, don't eat a stranger's food, don't drink a stranger's water, especially not when you already know something is wrong. Nathan came over and gave me 2 light pushes. I still pretended to sleep. Even so, they stayed cautious. They got up and moved a little farther away to whisper. They didn't expect this, though. Ever since I was little, I'd practiced archery while blindfolded. It trained my hearing until it was sharper than most. I could hear every word. Why don't we just kill her? Why drag dead weight around? What if she sees through me? Killing her would only make things worse, you idiot. The voice sounded young. But the Eastern Palace will notice she's missing. They'll come looking soon. If we're hauling her around, it'll be even more trouble. They started arguing, their voices rising before they realized it. That's why I came myself, risking it, lowering myself to do this. No matter what, we take her back to the Western regions alive. Only then can we truly drive a wedge between the Emperor of the Central Plains and the Pei brothers. Prince Arslan Abar, you need to understand, if we bring this woman, we might not make it back to the Western regions alive. Nathan sounded furious. Arslan, Turkic. We kidnapped her so the Emperor of the Central Plains will believe the Pei brothers are plotting rebellion, secretly sending someone to retrieve their only sister. If she dies, the Emperor will know the Pei brothers had nothing to do with it. Then we'll have wasted everything. We can kill her and frame the Emperor. It'll still split them apart. Idiot. She's a hostage the Emperor uses to keep the Pei brothers in check. If they haven't openly rebelled, how could the Emperor be stupid enough to kill her? News of her disappearance will reach the Pei brothers soon. They'll figure out we took her. They'll try to clear themselves. Once their petition reaches the Emperor, everyone will understand this was our scheme to sow discord. Her death gives us nothing. Only if she lives and reaches the Western regions as our hostage can we truly shake the trust between ruler and ministers. Even if they know it's our plot, the Emperor will still grow suspicious. Once he stops trusting them, even if they refuse to submit, he'll eventually cast them aside. And once Yumen Pass no longer has the Pei brothers, the Turkic Khaganate's army can march south without resistance and take Chang'an. Third brother always complained that I was too quiet, that I never talked much. I used to feel hurt by that. But hearing this today, I realized being quiet has its advantages, especially when you're trying to stay alive. If he hadn't laid out such a monstrous plot so plainly, how would I have understood what was at stake? This was the Turkic Khaganate's scheme. I had to find a way to escape and stop them. Before dawn, they woke me and prepared to move again. The others erased the traces left by the campfire and the cart tracks. They were meticulous. They even checked whether I'd left anything suspicious on the tree I'd rested against. Of course I hadn't. Even if I had, they would have destroyed it. All I did was casually toss away the half piece of flatbread I hadn't finished. No one would care about half a piece of bread beside a tree. What was there to notice about a piece of bread? Unless it had been soaked in drugged water. If an animal ate it, that would be the clue I left for the Crown Prince and the others. I had no food of my own. I could only eat what they gave me. If I refused, they'd grow suspicious. And they often drugged my water during the day, making me sleep in daylight and stay awake at night. That way I wouldn't suspect I'd been drugged. I'd only think my sleep schedule had flipped. They were cautious to the point of obsession. No wonder they'd become my brother's sworn enemies. After taking me out of Chang'an, they headed straight for the Yellow River. They planned to travel by water. They must have allies waiting there. The route was fast and exposed. If they followed the river north, they could return to the Turkic Khaganate in less than 10 days. We were about to reach the Yellow River. I worried whether the Crown Prince could catch up in time. I was anxious. I even started craving soup noodles, not because I loved them, but because there happened to be a stall right there. I needed to buy myself more time. Just one more bowl of soup noodles. Oh, soup noodles. I ran over, all smiles, and sat down. Boss! 1 bowl of soup noodles. Nathan was already impatient and didn't want to waste time. Miss, we still need to travel. I looked at him innocently. General Zhou, after eating dry rations for so long, don't you get sick of it? Nathan glanced helplessly at the man called Prince Arslan Abar. The man simply nodded, calm, unhurried, far more composed than Nathan. He sat down with a swagger. With his bright blue eyes, he looked me over with amusement and let out a loose, leering laugh. Let her have a bowl. Nathan Zhou, a bowl of soup noodles costs almost nothing. The brothers are hungry too. His mocking accent made my skin crawl. I turned away and waited quietly for the noodles. With this many people and this many bowls, surely I could drag things out for a while. My noodles came first. I didn't hold back and began to eat. I ate slowly and neatly, picking out only the leafy greens and leaving the stems on the table. The Turkic man laughed. If you were born in the Turkic Khaganate, you'd suffer. I heard the sarcasm and didn't care. In a nomad Khaganate, vegetables were precious. I ignored him and kept eating. Suddenly, he lifted his chopsticks and plucked the greens out of my bowl, one strand at a time. Heat rushed to my face. I burned with humiliation. When we finished, we continued on. At the Yellow River, the Crown Prince finally caught up with us. Move! The Turkic man grabbed me and ran toward the boat. I shook him off. I refused to take another step. I saw the Crown Prince, the Crown Princess Yuchi, and Luke. They sat upright on horseback. Dust streaked from the road. I'd never known the Crown Princess could ride. Lottie, Lucas Lee called. I tried to break free and run to the Crown Prince. But the Turkic man held me in an iron grip, trying to drag me onto the boat. It was too late. The others were already aboard. Only he and I were left, surrounded in an instant by the Crown Prince's men. With us trapped, Nathan had to bring his men off the boat to rescue him. Chaos erupted. Blades met blades. The two sides collided in a tangled crush. The Crown Princess was fierce and steady, her red-tasseled spear snapping through the air. She was already trading blows with Nathan. I hadn't known the Crown Princess could use a spear. That gentle, warm woman had once been formidable on horseback. The one trapped behind these walls wasn't only me. Crown Princess, I whispered, trying to move toward her. The Turkic man clamped down on me. I was stuck in a crowd where swords had no eyes. I couldn't move. The fight was going nowhere. Nathan wanted to retreat, but the Turkic man refused to give me up. The boat had already begun to pull away. Nathan fought as he backed toward it, withdrawing onto the deck. Arslan, get on! Nathan shouted anxiously. In his panic, he called the man by name. Forgive me, miss. He raised his hand to knock me out and take me with him. I refused. I shoved him and ran. Our struggle gave the Crown Prince's men the opening they needed. They surged in. Let her go and I'll let you leave. The Crown Prince sat tall on horseback, his voice calm but commanding. Prince Arslan Abar pressed a blade to my throat, using me as cover as he sneered. Ha! General Pei entrusted me to bring his sister back. If I can't keep my promise, I'd rather kill her and die in shame. I won't let her fall into your hands. The blade was at my throat, but I wasn't afraid. He was a fool. Even now, he was trying to smear my brothers. Did he think the Crown Prince couldn't hear him? His surname was Arslan, the royal name of the Turkic Khaganate, and Abar, meant bear in their tongue. His name meant the blue-eyed bear. He was the youngest son of the Turkic Khagan. He disguised himself as a middle-aged foreign merchant. When I was little, I'd seen him once from afar outside Human Pass. "Does Princess Arslan Hazel's left arm still hurt?" I asked coldly. Hazel was his older sibling. When I was young, I went on patrol with my father and ran into Hazel's hunting party. A conflict broke out. In the chaos, I shot Hazel in the left arm. Back then, the two countries were still relatively peaceful. I was young and I hadn't damaged the tendons. They knew they were in the wrong, and it was humiliating, so they let it go. "So that's it." Prince Arslan suddenly understood. "You recognized me long ago. No wonder they caught up so fast." He smiled. "Then tell me, between me and them, who cares more about your life?" As he spoke, the blade edged closer to my neck. "Don't do anything rash, don't hurt her." The Crown Prince ordered everyone to stop. Prince Arslan forced me back onto the boat, standing at the bow with the blade still drawn across my throat. But I knew he wouldn't kill me. I wasn't only a daughter of the Pei clan. I was also the Crown Prince's consort. His identity was exposed now. If he killed me, he would enrage the Emperor, and that would spark a war between the two nations. And the fact that he'd gone to such lengths to kidnap me made one thing clear. The Turkic Khaganate wasn't ready for war yet. At least, the time wasn't right. The boat cut quickly toward midstream, but no matter what, I couldn't fall into their hands. Then I saw Luke on the bank. He'd brought a bow. "Luke, do you remember what I hung on the paulownia tree in your courtyard?" I shouted. Luke froze. Of course he remembered. I'd taught him how to hit the target without harming what he cherished. He raised his bow without hesitation and aimed at me. Before Prince Arslan could react, the arrow flew, piercing straight through his hand. In the same instant, I shoved him away and jumped into the water. His knife clattered to the deck. Everything happened too fast. The men on the boat didn't have time to respond. The Crown Prince's forces surged forward. "Now, catch them!" The Crown Prince wanted to wipe them out. Prince Arslan had no choice but to flee by boat. His people were waiting to receive him on the opposite bank. I could swim, but it was flood season. The Yellow River was high and violent. I fought toward shore, but quickly ran out of strength. They were still chasing Arslan. He was a Turkic prince. Capturing him would benefit the court. "Lottie!" I heard the Crown Princess call my name. Then came a splash. Someone jumped into the river. The Crown Princess saved me. It cost her half her life. She'd recently given birth, and then she plunged into the water to rescue me. After that, she was bedridden for half a year. She couldn't even attend the New Year Palace banquet. Only then did I learn Luke wasn't her first child with the Crown Prince. Her first child had been lost on horseback. From then on, she sealed away her spear, released her horses, and forbade anyone to mention it. Yet for me, she picked up the spear again and mounted a horse. My Crown Princess was the best Crown Princess in the world, so why did heaven treat her like this? I burned the sutras and wiped my tears. From now on, I would no longer pray to the Buddha. I would protect her myself. Prince Arslan still escaped back to the Turkic Khaganate. After that, there was no movement from their side. Maybe there was, but it was court business. No one spoke of it in the inner palace. The Crown Prince would occasionally discuss it with the Crown Princess, but mostly they only sighed. I knew war was coming. When my father was alive, he said we were destined for a great battle with the Turkic Khaganate. That was why, even during the mourning period for our parents, my brothers remained stationed at Human Pass and could not return to the capital. The Crown Princess often stared at the distant sky and sighed. She said we'd lived in comfort for too long. Our bones had grown soft in peace and celebration. I finally understood. It wasn't that no one saw the Turkic ambition. It was that the court did not want war. It only wanted to paint a false calm over everything. The Crown Princess lowered her head and looked at her hands, then said sadly, "Once upon a time, these hands had calluses too." Her gaze was mournful, as if through those pale, slender hands she could see her former self. Bright armor, swift horse, wild and unrestrained. Later, Aunt Serena told me the Crown Princess's mother's family had been loyal to the point of extinction. The Crown Princess herself had even gone to war. Back then, she wasn't yet betrothed to the Crown Prince. In her teens, she followed her father and brothers to the battlefield. That war brought glory to the Yuchi clan. It brought her the position of crown princess. And it took away her father and brothers. She was young, hot-blooded, full of defiance. She'd been married to the crown prince for less than half a year and couldn't bear the dull, constrained life of privilege. Against everyone's objections, she rode to the front again, swearing to defend the nation. The only one who supported her was the crown prince, young too. Later, she lost her first child with him. Still, she did not retreat. After a brief rest in camp, she took up her spear and mounted again. In the end, she returned victorious, but her body had been damaged too severely. After years of recovery and another miscarriage, she finally had Lucas Lee. From then on, she never touched a spear or rode a horse again, until the day she saved me. A painted peace could never bring true stability. 3 years later, the Turkic Khaganate united with tribes of the western regions and raised troops to invade. They struck straight at Yanmen Pass. They had lain low for more than 10 years, while we had grown comfortable for too long. Their army advanced like a blade through bamboo. Our forces retreated again and again. The nation shook. The whole country erupted in panic. The court had grown old. In recent years, the emperor had sought doctors and medicine without end. The aches of age drained his strength. The ambition of his youth was gone. He wanted only peace. He even proposed ceding the 9 prefectures of Yanyun. But resistance in court was too strong. The peace faction and the war faction deadlocked. The crown prince labored day and night, his brow knotted with worry. Even his temples had turned white. The peace faction seemed to have the upper hand, but it couldn't be allowed. No one wanted to give up the 9 prefectures of Yanyun. Even I knew the Yanyun's 16 prefectures were the empire's solid wall. Ceding them would only feed the appetites of the nations of the western regions. These days, the crown princess kept wiping down her spear in the courtyard. She polished the spearhead until it shone. When the crown prince entered, the glare nearly dazzled him. He said nothing, only let out a soft sigh. The crown princess didn't speak either. But the crown prince already understood her stance. Within days, the wind shifted in court. Officials began calling for war. They argued fiercely, denounced each other, and begged through blood petitions. The whole court was stirred. Morale surged. Yet the crown princess showed no joy. Every day she practiced with her spear in the courtyard for 3 full hours. Husband and wife shared one heart. The crown prince often watched her swift, valiant figure staring blankly. His face looked so grief-stricken it seemed he might cry. A few days later, the emperor finally ordered a northern campaign and commanded the crown prince to lead it in person. As expected, the crown princess also asked to go. Her words rang like steel. No one could stop her. I watched her put on armor and mount her warhorse. She smiled, bold and unrestrained. I had never seen her smile like that. Before, she always smiled softly, eyes curved with warmth and patience. But I'd never seen her smile so freely, so brightly. She was beautiful like that. Crown princess? I stepped forward and held her hand. She squeezed back, gentle yet strong. Lottie, don't worry. I'll win a fine victory in return, then I'll send you out of the Eastern Palace in honor. Crown princess, I want to go with you. Even if I couldn't fight, it would be enough to take a blade for her. She gently wiped my tears. Silly Lottie. You're already grown, and you still cry so easily. If you go too, who will help me take care of Luke and Ollie? I cried harder. Crown princess? Don't worry, I promise you, I'll come back alive. You have to believe me. She looked into the distance, her eyes deep, as if remembering the past. I've survived spears and arrows more times than I can count. I stood beneath the horses and watched her and the crown prince. I guided their hands together and held them as one. It was a prayer and a trust. Crown prince, crown princess. Yanmen is far. Go together, return together. I was never as brave or steadfast as she was. I would never ride into battle. I had skill with a bow, but nothing had ever died by my arrow. If Nathan had truly picked up a wounded wild goose for me before, he would have known. My arrow for Jeese had no arrowhead at all. I liked riding in archery because I wasn't good at anything else. They called me a divine archer. Yet each hunt I came back empty-handed. A sharp blade in my hand, but a soft heart. When I saw life, I couldn't bear to see death. I was born in peace, raised in peace. I was the youngest daughter. My parents doted on me. My brothers spoiled me. I'd never been to war, never seen war. I could only shoot targets on the range or candied treats tied to pigeons' legs, weak and useless. So I could only watch her figure on horseback fade into the distance and do nothing. "Lottie, guard the Eastern Palace. Wait for us to return," the Crown Prince told me. I nodded, tears still on my face. Luke stood beside me and quietly took my hand. I watched their backs as they rode away. Suddenly I thought of the day I first married into the Eastern Palace. I'd watched them leave side by side then too. That day I wore wedding robes. I sat in the bridal palanquin with a fan in my hands. Fifth brother escorted my marriage procession. I sat in the bridal chamber, anxious and shy, waiting for my future husband to lift the fan and drink the ceremonial wine with me. I was nervous and afraid. My husband was the crown prince, the most exalted man under heaven. He already had a crown princess, and their bond was deep. Would he like me, or only like me for a while? If he didn't like me or never liked me at all, how would I survive in the palace? Would I end up like the poets wrote, leaning beside a brazier until dawn, fading in silence like spring flowers, becoming nothing more than an ornament in a sea-deep palace? Remembering that trembling heart, I smiled in relief. It was fine. More than fine. The Crown Prince and the Crown Princess truly loved each other. The Crown Princess was truly kind, and they truly treated me as family. That was enough, far better than I had imagined. Because I had met the best Crown Prince and the best Crown Princess in the world. Luke saw me smile and asked, puzzled, what I was laughing at. I said I was thinking of the day I married into the Eastern Palace. I'd watched the Crown Prince and Crown Princess leave just like this. And you were the one standing beside me then too. Lottie, don't worry, I'll always be by your side. Luke looked at me and spoke casually, with a smile. Only then did I really look at him. Time had passed so quickly. Luke had quietly grown a head taller than me. His build was lean and graceful, his features sharp, his manner refined. Yet between his brows was a gentleness that resembled his mother. I remembered the first time I met him, he'd been only half grown. Now it felt like another lifetime. I realized I'd been in the Eastern Palace for more than 5 years. Luke had become a young man. I took Ollie from his wet nurse's arms and looked at him with a smile. A warm pride rose in me, like watching one's own child grow. Luke is grown now. You can marry. I started walking back toward the Eastern Palace. Luke caught up, clinging to my side the way he had as a child. I don't want to marry. When I was your age, I was already married into the Eastern Palace. Then I won't take a wife either. The realm isn't settled. How can I build a home? We walked side by side down the long palace corridor, our shadows stretched by the sun. Besides, having Lottie is enough. The breeze stole away his murmur. I thought I heard it, and yet I wasn't sure I had. As the eldest imperial grandson, with the crown prince away from court, Luke could now attend audiences and hear state affairs. I followed the war in the northwest closely, and waited for letters from the crown princess every day. Beyond praying, there was little I could do. Then one day, Luke came back very late. I'd already lulled Ollie to sleep, but Luke still hadn't returned. I went to the palace gate to wait. After a long time, I saw him walking toward me from far away. He looked dejected. I went up to him and asked softly what was wrong. Like when he was small, he threw himself into my arms and mumbled, "Grandfather wants to arrange a marriage for me." "How can that be allowed?" I blurted out. Luke's eyes lit up. "You think it can't be allowed too?" "Of course not," I said firmly. "Your marriage is a major matter for the Eastern Palace. The Crown Prince and the Crown Princess aren't in the capital. How can the Emperor decide on his own without considering their wishes?" The light in Luke's eyes went out at once. He sighed, stepped past me, and returned to his room. I watched his back, a nameless melancholy rising. How had my Luke suddenly grown up? If everything could stay the way it was before, how good that would be. That night, the sound of arrows, sharp, hissing, rang from Luke's courtyard until dawn. Only then did I realize he truly had grown. He could now draw a bow so heavy I couldn't even lift it, much less pull it. And in my own courtyard, I leaned against the door and looked down at my hands. I remembered what the Crown Princess had said about bones softened by peace. With sorrow, I realized mine had softened too. The war with the Turkic Khaganate lasted longer than expected. But the crown princess was seasoned and brilliant in command, and victories kept arriving from the frontier. The emperor, old and easily overwhelmed, fainted from sudden joy. Thankfully, treatment came in time. His life was spared for now. That night, Luke sent someone back to the Eastern Palace to tell me he wouldn't return. I didn't need to wait. Of course, as the eldest imperial grandson, he should stay in the palace to attend the emperor. The emperor's health improved day by day, and the first thing he did once he recovered was worry about Luke's marriage. Luke said the emperor had already sent a secret letter to the crown prince and the crown princess at the frontier. Once their reply came, the arrangements could begin. The crown prince and the crown princess did not decide on their own. They wrote back to ask Luke's wishes and told me to pay attention to the eligible noble girls in the capital. When I brought the letter to Luke and carefully asked whether he had someone he liked among the noble girls of Changnan, the joy on his face instantly turned to irritation. He snatched the letter from my hands and shoved me out. I stood outside his door, staring at the closed panels, stunned. It was the first time in years Luke had ever shown anger toward me. For a moment, I didn't know what to do. Later, I didn't know what he wrote back to the crown prince and crown princess. For months, the emperor never mentioned Luke's marriage again. The moon waned and waxed, and soon year's end arrived. The north wind howled. Snow filled Chang'an. It was my first New Year with Luke. Ollie couldn't stay awake and was taken away early by his nurse. We sat in the Eastern Palace's reception hall and watched the heavy snow outside. Luke asked, "Lottie, do you have a New Year's wish?" "I hope the crown prince and the crown princess stay safe and return victorious soon," I said. "If you can only have one wish," Luke pressed. I thought for a moment and still said, "I hope the crown prince and the crown princess return safely." If I could only choose one, I didn't need soon, and I didn't need victory. I only needed them alive. Luke let out a sigh so faint I almost didn't hear it. My chest tightened. Luke had grown up, and his worries seemed heavier now. He wasn't as carefree as he used to be. "And you? What do you wish for?" I asked, troubled by the gloom between his brows. "I only wish the person I think of every day would think of me too." Luke looked at me, his eyes dark, as if they could swallow the stars. My heart jolted. Something was terribly wrong. Still, I smiled and reached up to ruffle his hair as I used to. This time he avoided my hand. I pulled it back awkwardly but kept my smile. "Luke, the person you care about will care about you too. No matter who are Luke." "What about you?" Luke cut me off. "Do you think of me?" Faced with his urgent, blazing gaze, I smiled uneasily. "Of course I do." Only then did Luke break into a bright smile. I continued, "No matter which noble girl our Luke has his eye on, I'm sure she thinks of you too. Among the girls the Empress chooses." Luke's smile froze. Before I could finish, he flicked his sleeve and walked away. In secret, I blamed myself for overstepping. I was only a minor consort. Luke was the Emperor's eldest grandson. The future crown prince, the future emperor. How could I meddle in his marriage? Whoever Luke married in the future had nothing to do with me. After the first month of the year, Luke's marriage was set. It was to the youngest daughter of the Empress's natal family, Empress Wang's nephew's child. She had just turned 14. They would wed once she turned 15 and came of age. The emperor had already informed the crown prince and crown princess in advance. Before any reply could arrive, the empress issued the imperial marriage decree. Even if the crown prince and the crown princess had wanted to ask Luke's opinion, it was already too late. Still, I heard the girl was exceptional in both beauty and character. Gentle, careful, filial. Though young, she was already known for her talent among the noble girls of the capital, a worthy match. Good news ought to lift the spirit. But that evening, Luke returned to the Eastern Palace looking as if his soul had left him. I heard he'd made a mistake on an assignment and offended the emperor. He was punished to kneel outside the imperial study for 3 hours. As for what assignment it was, the emperor forbade anyone to ask. Seeing Luke limp back in the dark, my heart clenched. I hurried to support him and couldn't help scolding softly. "You're new to court. If you handled something poorly, just lower your head and admit it. Why argue with the emperor and invite punishment?" Luke looked at me coldly. After a long pause, he sighed in helplessness. "I didn't do any task wrong, Grandfather punished me because I refused the marriage he arranged. No wonder the Emperor wouldn't let anyone ask. If people learned Luke had knelt for 3 hours outside the Imperial study just to avoid marrying Miss Wang, would the girl have any face left? Would the Wang family? Where would the Empress's dignity go? I supported him as we walked slowly. You don't like Miss Wang? I wanted to ask more, but in the end I only asked that. I don't. Luke's voice was sullen. I sighed. If you don't like Miss Wang, is it because you already have someone you love? Yes, Luke said, still sullen. Then you should have told your parents early. You should have had someone go and propose, exchange birth cards, settle the match. You wouldn't be stuck like this. Luke drew in a deep breath. After a long time, he finally said, the person I love and our status is too different. The world wouldn't allow it, and I haven't confessed to her. I don't know whether she feels the same. As he spoke, his breathing grew uneven and his ears turned red. I couldn't help laughing. So even our Luke can get flustered. Don't laugh. Luke glared at me, then immediately wilted again, miserable and helpless. I'm gonna lose my mind. All right, you haven't even met Miss Wang. How do you know you won't like her? Now that the engagement is set, no matter when others mention it, they'll assume you're already won. Is there really no other way? Can't I beg grandfather and grandmother to take it back? Luke started throwing a childish tantrum with me. The Emperor and the Empress are your grandparents. They won't harm you. The wife they chose must be the finest woman in the world, I tried to persuade him. Since it was done, perhaps it was better to accept it. But I don't want her. In my heart, there's only one best woman in the world. It isn't Miss Wang. Then it had to be the one he loved. Then, tell the one you love how you feel. If she returns your feelings, bringing her into the Eastern Palace isn't impossible. If they could get along the way the Crown Princess and I did, it wouldn't have to be torment. I already told you. Our status is too different. How can I confess? Luke lowered his head and kicked a stone off the path. A spark of anger flared in me. Luke was still young. Where had he learned to think like this? Luke, I didn't think you cared so much about rank. If rank matters to you that much, then Miss Wang is the perfect match. I shook off his hand and walked on. I don't care about rank. Luke looked panicked and wronged. He hurried after me, tugging my sleeve as if he might cry. I don't care about rank at all, and I don't want to bring anyone else into the Eastern Palace. From beginning to end, the only one I ever wanted was her, just her. Luke stared at me, his eyes red. This time it was real. He truly had feelings. Then if you don't care about rank, confess. If you truly love each other, go and beg for permission to marry her. If it's only your wishful thinking, then turn around and look at Miss Wang, I said, still trying to help him. If I could confess, I wouldn't be suffering like this today. Luke looked at me bitterly, even rolling his eyes. I took a breath and spoke earnestly. Luke, a noble heart is open. A petty heart is always anxious. Everyone has someone they favor. It's not shameful that you don't like Miss Wang and have someone else in your heart. Your mistake is this. You loved someone else but never said it. Never fought for it. And because of that, you've dragged Miss Wang into this for nothing. Now that the engagement is set, if you resist the decree and break it off, what happens to her reputation? Her purity? In this world, women already lived with difficulty. They depended on fathers, brothers, husbands. Raised behind walls, kept like flowers, they had no way to live on their own. If their husband disliked them, who would they rely on? Where could such fragile women even go? Second brother once said that because women were trapped like this, common people valued sons over daughters. Lottie, stop. This is all my fault. I shouldn't have wanted what doesn't belong to me. That's why I can't speak. That's why I'm in this place. To me, she's the moon in water, a flower in the mirror, someone I must never covet. In the end, this is all my own doing. Luke looked so miserable, his eyes brimmed with tears. My heart ached. I patted his head. So this world shackled men too. Luke, don't be sad. If you truly don't want to marry Miss Wang, wait until the Crown Prince and the Crown Princess return. Ask them to decide for you. Maybe there's still room to change things. I had my favorites too. I couldn't bear to see Luke suffer even a little. Luke buried his face against me, aggrieved and small. Lottie? I held him and gently patted his back. soothing him the way I used to when he was little. Then I suddenly remembered something. When did you start liking this girl? Why didn't I ever know? Luke's face reddened. He put on a stubborn front. You spend all day running after Ollie now. When would you ever pay attention to me? I really envy that kid. He can cling to you as much as he wants. I laughed. You're this grown and you're jealous of Ollie? Lottie, if one day I become shameless, treasonous, someone utterly unforgivable, would you still stay by my side like you do now? Our Luke wouldn't, I said firmly. Our Luke is as pure as autumn moonlight in a crystal vessel, clear and spotless. You're an upright man. I'm not, Luke suddenly shouted. I have the filthiest thoughts, the most forbidden desires. Lottie, you don't understand. You don't understand how disgusting I am, how vile. He cried as if he'd truly done something monstrous, something the world would spit on. It broke me. Luke. I didn't know what to do. From that day on, Luke began to avoid me, intentionally or not. He no longer resisted the engagement to Miss Wang. When Miss Wang entered the palace to pay respects to the Empress, Luke would sometimes go sit in the Empress's palace as well, but I could feel it. Luke was becoming more and more unhappy. Time flowed like water. In the blink of an eye, the war with the Turkic Khaganate had lasted 2 full years. Last month, news arrived that the Crown Prince and Crown Princess had led the generals to retake the northern desert. The whole nation was thrilled. Everyone waited for their triumphant return. In the 7th year of Yongning, autumn came. The Turkic Khaganate was defeated and retreated beyond the Chilean mountains. Our army returned in victory. The only regret was the Crown Prince. In the final battle, he was wounded by a Turkic general while saving the Crown Princess. The injury was fatal. He died. The emperor was devastated beyond bearing. He suspended court for 10 days and fell ill, unable to rise. On his sickbed, following ancestral law, he issued an edict naming the legitimate eldest grandson, Lucas Li, as the imperial grandson. He conferred the seals and ordered him to serve as regent. With the crown prince dead, it was as if the crown princess lost half her life, too. She sat in the hall all day, hollow and dazed. The war had been won, yet no one was happy. I remembered what second brother once said, in war, no one truly wins. I watched it all as if in a dream. I wished that when I woke, the crown prince would be safe, the crown princess wouldn't sit empty-eyed all day, Luke wouldn't be weighed down by sorrow, and I wouldn't be in pain. Everything would be as it used to be. But I could do nothing. I could only watch the crown princess sink deeper, day after day. Flowers, wine, splendid clothes, jewels, fine food, Ollie and Luke, none of it could pull her back. It was as if she'd forgotten how to smile. She only watched my efforts and wept in silence. The crown princess fell ill, terribly ill. I didn't dare mention the crown prince. I didn't dare ask how he died in battle. I could only cry in secret, where she couldn't see, and hope she would, slowly, find her way out of grief. Sometimes she was clear. Sometimes she wasn't. Sometimes she would suddenly come back from her trance and ask me, "When is the crown prince coming back?" Or while eating, she would murmur, "Wait for the crown prince," as if speaking without thinking. She always believed he was still alive. She didn't remember going to war, killing enemies. Often she thought it was back when I had only just entered the Eastern Palace, when she had lost her daughter. Thinking of her fearless smile before she marched out, I couldn't stop myself from sobbing. That same year, on the 26th day of the 11th month, the emperor died. The imperial grandson, Lucas Li, ascended the throne. He honored Empress Wang, his grandmother, as the Grand Empress Dowager. He honored his birth mother, Crown Princess Yuqi, as the Empress Dowager. He granted his younger brother, Oliver Li, the title of Prince Gong. I was 22. I became the youngest grand consort in history. I lived alone in Chengqing Palace. But most of the time, I stayed in the Crown Princess's Ganlu Hall. She couldn't be left unattended, and I never felt at ease letting others keep watch. Even with my careful care day after day, her body still weakened visibly. One day, I brewed her medicine and carried it over. By chance, I overheard the crown princess speaking with Luke. She said, "Luke, my health worsens by the day. I don't have much time left. I need to tell you a few things. Ollie has the title of Prince Gong, and he's your only brother. I'm not worried about his future. The only one I can't let go of is Lottie." Lottie had her wings broken by the late emperor when she was still young. She was kept in the Eastern Palace as a hostage. Her youth was thrown away. She was never truly a crown prince's consort for even a single day. To your father and me, she was more like our adopted daughter. I hope that after I die you'll let her leave the palace. The world outside is vast. She'll live more freely, more happily. Luke sat at the bedside, listening in silence. At those words, he suddenly lifted his robe and knelt. His back straight, his voice firm, he said, "I won't." Luke, always obedient, actually defied his ailing mother. The crown princess broke into violent coughing. "Luke, Lottie watched you grow up. How she treated you, I don't need to say it. You know, I may not say it, but I'm not blind. She taught you to ride and shoot with her own hands. When you were 13 and hunted a bear and earned the late emperor's praise, it was because Lottie helped you in secret. All these years, every time you got into trouble and were punished, who begged for you and cleaned up after you if not Lottie? She's treated you no less than I have as your mother. Now you're the emperor, and you still want to learn from the late emperor. Keep her locked in the palace as a tool to restrain the Pei brothers?" "Mother," Luke said, "what you said is true. To me, Lottie is teacher, friend, and confidant. We grew up together. We were close as children with no suspicion between us. How could I ever treat her as a tool? I won't let Lottie leave the palace because she's too important to me. She is half my life. Without her, I truly don't know how to be a good emperor in this lonely palace." There was loneliness and grief in his words that made my throat tighten. I stood outside the hall holding the medicine for a long time until it went cold. I still didn't have the courage to step inside. After a while, Luke came out. He didn't look at me. He walked past as if I weren't there. His face was cold. It made me feel as though the man who'd just spoken with such passion, calling me half his life, couldn't possibly have been him. The following year, in the 3rd month, the new emperor could no longer withstand his minister's urging. By decree of the Grand Empress Dowager, he made Miss Wang empress and brought her into the palace to rule the inner court. The investiture ceremony stretched deep into the night before it ended. In Chengqing Palace, I was about to have the gates locked and go to bed when Luke knocked and stumbled in, dead drunk. He was a mess, clinging to me and refusing to let go. Flustered, I told the servants to prepare sobering soup and urged Luke to return to Taiji Hall to rest. Luke nuzzled against me, shaking his head in my arms. "I'm not going back. I just want to stay here." I tried to push him away and search his eyes for clarity, but he was truly drunk, his eyes bloodshot at the corners, full of misty confusion. "Luke, you're drunk. Today's your wedding. You should be with the Empress," I said gently. "I don't want to." Luke muttered like a child. "I'm the Emperor. I can be wherever I want." He tried to put on airs, flinging his sleeve, but he could barely stand. I quickly steadied him. I took the sobering soup the servants brought and fed it to him. Then I helped him lie down on the couch. I stayed beside him, planning to urge him back to the Empress as soon as he sobered up. Luke slept for about an hour. When he woke, shock flashed in his eyes, the same look he'd had when he first stumbled in. His ears were red. After a long pause, he forced out, "I behaved poorly while drunk. I lost control. Please forgive me, Grand Consort." I looked at him the way I used to when he was a child who'd made a mistake, and said softly, "Since the Emperor is awake, go back to Taiji Hall." Luke fled like the wind. I laughed quietly at his embarrassment. But the next day I heard the Emperor still hadn't returned to Taiji Palace. Instead, he spent the entire night in the Imperial study handling state affairs. More than 3 senior ministers, men over 60, all of the highest rank, were dragged out of bed to keep him company through the night, discussing the many matters after the recovery of the northern desert. Only when the sky began to pale did he let them leave. Those poor old men, yawning as they walked, still had to think about how to yawn in the Emperor's presence without committing an offense. Later, the historians recorded the incident. They said it proved Luke was a diligent, people-minded emperor. I had already met the young Empress Wang when she came to pay her respects to her grace. The young empress was 15 or 16, fresh as spring scallions. Gentle and proper, she smiled shyly, dimples appearing in both cheeks, and it made anyone feel fond of her. She spoke softly, lively and young, brimming with life. Anyone would like her, except Luke. Her Grace was very pleased with this daughter-in-law. So was I. But Luke never once stayed the night in the Empress's palace. Rumors of discord between Emperor and Empress spread like wildfire. The Grand Empress Dowager wanted Luke to hold a selection of consorts, and he refused. The ministers urged the Emperor to take concubines, and he ignored them. Everyone worried themselves sick over the imperial family's private affairs. Luke only kept his head down and handled state matters. There was always endless business at court. So the days went, one after another, until the moment Her Grace's oil ran dry and her lamp went out. In her last days, we stayed with her as much as we could, afraid that each time we saw her might be the last. That day came at last. Her Grace could no longer swallow even her medicine. I knelt by her bed, tears streaming down my face. Her Grace, Her Grace. Her Grace weakly lifted a hand to wipe my tears. Lottie, don't cry. If you cry, you won't be pretty. Her Grace, don't leave Lottie alone. My heart ached so badly I could barely speak. I choked on my sobs, crying until the words failed me. Her Grace let out a labored sigh as if every breath hurt. She stared into the distance with hollow eyes, as though searching the past. My life has been good and long. I went to war. I became Empress Dowager. I shared a lifetime of deep love with the Crown Prince, and I had Luke and Ollie. My only regret is that I never had a daughter. But Lottie, I have you. I have no regrets. It's complete. I'm content. Her Grace, I sobbed, not knowing what to say. 1,000 words clogged my throat, yet I didn't want to speak a single one, as if, so long as I didn't say farewell, Her Grace wouldn't die. Lottie, it's you who suffered. You should have lived your freest life under open skies. The Crown Prince and I. Her Grace panted, quick and shallow. We meant to send you out of the palace, but fate played its tricks, and we never found the right moment. Lottie, my Lottie. She struggled to reach up and touch my face. I hurried to cradle her hand and press my cheek into her palm. My tears soaked her skin. She looked toward Luke, who was crying without a sound, and murmured, Luke, I think I see your father. After that, Her Grace's hand suddenly went slack. Her life was pulled away in an instant, like a kite with its string snapped, gone at once. Yet there was still a smile on her face. I believe that, in the final moment, she truly saw the Crown Prince. Her Grace. Mother. In Ganlu Hall, the crying did not stop for a long, long time. In the first year of Chongping, the Grand Empress Dowager Suchi passed away. She was buried at the Western Mausoleum, laid to rest in the same tomb as Emperor Suzong. After Her Grace's body was prepared, the young emperor collapsed with his head in my lap and wept for a long time. I patted his back gently, unable to offer a single word of comfort. What we carried then was real pain, cutting to the bone, pain beyond words. Anyone who had not lived it could never understand. After Her Grace died, the palace felt even lonelier. Every brick, every tile, every person turned terrifyingly cold. Each day and each night stretched unbearably long and silent. Everything here became impossible to endure. Even the air felt suffocating. I lost my smile. I stayed in Chengqing Palace all day and never stepped outside. Luke often came to see me. He had become a true emperor, diligent, caring for the people, strict with himself, faithful to propriety. The Crown Prince and Her Grace had left him a new golden age, waiting only for him to open it. Yet I understood his feelings less and less. Sometimes he would simply look at me in silence, then turn and leave. Sometimes he would make small talk and ask after my health. More often, he came after drinking. He would hold me and cry, hold me and laugh, and recall the days in the Eastern Palace. He would say he was tired, that he was in pain. He would talk about the vexing affairs at court, and he would also brush against that hidden fondness he didn't dare to name. Not even when drunk. But neither of us was happy. This deep palace was like a giant beast, its glittering, exquisite mouth both seductive and monstrous. Once you fell in, it swallowed every scrap of your joy. When it had eaten you clean, it dressed itself up again and waited, luring more people to rush in, one after another. I died in the spring of the second year after losing Her Grace. That year, on the Dragon Boat Festival, Luke went to the Imperial Ancestral Temple to honor the ancestors. I was celebrating Ollie's birthday. I cooked him a bowl of longevity noodles. When I watched him finish, I told him he could make a wish. He was about to speak, but I covered his mouth. Choking back tears, I told him, if you say it out loud, it won't come true. He looked at me, not understanding why I was crying. He only nodded, bewildered. Then, the Grand Empress Dowager came to Chenqing Palace in person. She had someone take Ollie away and said she wanted to speak with me alone. I had rarely seen this formidable Grand Empress Dowager, even back when I was a Liangdi. Once we sat, she began at once. Charlotte Pei, someone has accused you of bewitching the Emperor. Do you admit your guilt? I was confused and answered honestly. I don't know. The Emperor is young and has no interest in the inner palace, yet he pays you special attention. I don't care what thoughts he harbors toward you. But Charlotte Pei, don't forget who you are. You were my son's Liangdi. You are the Emperor's concubine mother. The Grand Empress Dowager was furious, glaring at me like a wrathful guardian. I don't care whether you and my son were husband and wife in truth. I don't care what feelings you have for the Emperor. But Charlotte Pei, on his wedding night, he came to your palace. Every time he enters the inner palace, he comes to you, as if the Empress in Taiji Hall doesn't exist. If he simply disliked Miss Wang, that would be understandable. But now he refuses to take the 4 consorts and he refuses to touch palace maids. Yet he keeps close company with you, his young concubine mother. Outside, people are already talking. Rumors are everywhere. Charlotte Pei, let me ask you, can you bear the charge of corrupting the palace? When I heard this, it was like thunder striking my skull. Cold spread through my whole body. So in other people's eyes, the closeness between Luke and me looked that filthy, that obscene. The Emperor and Empress have been married nearly 2 years, yet they have never consummated the marriage. The Empress is miserable all day, anxious and afraid. The court is uneasy, yet no one dares to guess the Emperor's will. Charlotte Pei, do you know that discord between Emperor and Empress benefits neither the Imperial House, nor the court, nor the state? So no matter what the truth is, Charlotte Pei, whether for the public good or my own, I can no longer tolerate you. My heart turned to ash. My face went sallow. The Grand Empress Dowager gave me a bottle of medicine and a jug of wine, and watched me drink. As she left, she said only one thing. I don't want the Emperor to know I came. I found it absurd. So what if he knew? You are his own grandmother. That is exactly why you can so boldly make me die, isn't it? I lay on the floor, staring up at the plaque of Chenqing Palace. Suddenly I felt my life had been too short, too bleak. I had once been wind beyond human pass, unrestrained and free, an eagle soaring where it pleased. Yet an absurd marriage trapped me in the imperial city for life. No one targeted me. No one framed me. I never even had the chance to witness the palace's schemes and intrigues. I began cautious, then learned to keep my place. I never crossed lines, never reached beyond my station. I was given so much love. Yet why did it still end like this? I was heartbroken, but I couldn't cry. I was dying, but I didn't want to die here. Spitting blood, I dragged myself up. I wandered without purpose, not knowing where to go. In the end, like a drifting soul, I returned to the Eastern Palace, like an old horse finding its way home, like a fallen leaf returning to its roots. But this was not my path, and not my route. Human Pass was simply too far, and I had simply grown used to this place. I walked a circuit of the Eastern Palace and came to the lakeside pavilion, Luke's hidden trove. Inside, everything was as it had been, not much different from years ago, only with a few more things. The moment I entered, I saw a long spear leaning against the stone wall and a stiff bow hanging beside it. There was also a wooden box on the table, thick with dust. Clearly, no one had been here for a long time. I opened the box. Inside was a pebble, a ruler for discipline, and a blue-black feather. I placed my final letter inside. It was short, just one sentence. If you ever meet with spring wind and gentle rain, that will be me coming to see you. I was going to die. I remembered when I turned 15 and had my coming-of-age ceremony. All my brothers looked at me, crowding around to speak words of blessing. My eldest brother said Lottie would have fortune and long life. My second brother said Lottie would have joy and peace. My third brother said Lottie's life would go smoothly. My fourth brother said Lottie would live free of worry. My fifth brother said Lottie would live to 100. Yet in the end, I died here. I died in Luke's hidden trove. I had one wish. In that wish, I became a gust of wind, became an eagle, and returned to Human Pass, soaring through boundless sky and earth. In that wish, everyone had a good ending. Extra. Oliver Lee Lady Pei, who had always cared for me and raised me, died. I was so sad that I cried for days. Lady Pei was not my birth mother, but in my heart, she was no different. She taught me to eat and to write. She sewed me new clothes. When I fell, when I was afraid, she held me in her arms. My brother was also very sad, but he didn't cry. He was the first to find Lady Pei. He found her in a cave, and now he doesn't allow anyone to enter that cave. He carried Lady Pei out. He wouldn't let anyone come near. I followed him quietly and watched him carry Lady Pei into grandmother's palace and drive everyone away. He knelt on the floor and asked grandmother, "Grandmother, why? Why did you have to kill her? Do you know that Lottie is half my life? Half my life. Father is dead, mother is dead, and now even Lottie is gone. I have no home now. I have no home, do you hear me?" My brother seemed to cry, crying even harder than I did. I didn't understand. Usually, he barely spoke to Lady Pei. Why was he more heartbroken than me now that she was dead? "Outrageous," grandmother snapped. "She was only your father's Liangdi in name. How can she be compared to your father and mother? I'm still alive. You still have a younger brother of your own blood, and you have an empress you married properly. How can you say you have no home?" My brother only shook his head and cried. "You never took punishment for me. You never rode horses with me. You never taught me archery. You never watched me grow up. You never waited for me to come home in the dead of night. Lottie wasn't just father's Liangdi. She grew up with me. She was my childhood companion. She cried with me, laughed with me, walked night roads with me. She was my moon. Without the moon, how am I supposed to walk the endless night road from now on? How? Without the moon, how am I supposed to walk?" I lifted my head to look at the sky. Strange. The moon was clearly there. Why did my brother say it was gone? My brother's words made grandmother furious. She pointed at his nose and scolded him. "You really should go listen to what people outside say about you. They curse you for shamelessness. They say you're worse than beasts. No matter what, she was your concubine mother. Do you want morality and human bonds or not? Do you want the royal family's dignity or not? I want nothing more than to skin you alive." "That's my fault. What does it have to do with Lottie?" my brother cried. "I'm shameless. I'm worse than beasts. But my Lottie, she was innocent. I was the one who grew greedy for what I shouldn't. I wanted the moon in the water. I tried to trap the spring wind with my own foolish longing. The one who should die is me. His words made me forget to even let my tears fall. How could the moon be in water? How could the wind be trapped? Just then a breeze passed. I reached out to try to catch it, but I caught nothing. "You should die," grandmother said coldly. "But can I let you? I still need you to rule the Lee family's realm and bring the world a golden age." "What are you doing now, wailing here over a woman? This realm was bought with my son's life. It was bought with your mother's life. Even if you die, you must die at the Lee family's desk. I will never allow a creature who ruins all moral order to appear in the Lee family's history. She was only a consort dowager. She has no right to appear in the official records, and I won't let her appear. But you are different. You are the emperor. Every word and deed of yours is watched. One misstep and you'll drown in spittle. And this is a scandal of the highest order." "It was my fault. My brother sobbed. "I shouldn't have kept her in the palace. I should have listened to mother and let her leave." Grandmother sighed, as if some of her anger had drained away. "I gave her a choice. It was she herself who insisted on staying." My brother seemed to freeze. How could that be? She clearly missed Human Pass so much. She clearly wanted to go home. "Home?" grandmother said. "Outside Human Pass, where is her home now? She lived in the palace for nearly 10 years. 10 years. Isn't the palace her home? Even if someone still waited for her at Human Pass, she wouldn't have the courage to go back. Even the emperor has changed once. The world has long since become unrecognizable. The Pei clan is loyal to the bone, and their daughters are even more stubborn and unyielding. She said her brothers held Human Pass and never retreated a step because inside the pass were their home and family. And now the palace was her home. You and Ollie were her family. So she would not retreat either. She couldn't leave you behind and return to Human Pass alone. She said if she left, she would leave with dignity, not be forced out like a cockroach in the dark." Grandmother sighed deeply. In the end, she was still a daughter of the Pei clan. She had her own backbone. She died on her own battlefield to protect her own human pass. In the end, it was all the former emperor's suspicion, the evil he brought into being. How could it be? How could it be? My brother said as if he'd gone mad, repeating himself. Why? Why would she rather die than return to the human past she missed with all her heart? How could it be? Time is terrifying, grandmother said. It can make the unbelievable seem natural, and make the natural seem unbelievable. For 10 years she was an eagle with broken wings, trapped in the deep palace. How could she be released in a single day and suddenly have open skies? A caged bird longs for its old forest. But if it lives in a cage for too long, it will end up like Lord Ye, loving dragons only in stories. She was a pitiful child. I wronged her, and so did the late emperor. You wronged her, and so did your father. If there is another life, remember to go to her and kneel to beg forgiveness for us. What happened after that, I can't remember clearly. I only remember my brother cried for a long, long time, and I cried for a long, long time too. I knew the one most heartbroken by Lady Pei's death was my brother. But my brother only cried once there in grandmother's palace. He didn't dare cry. He feared the scholar officials. He said that if the scholar officials knew he cried, they would slander Lady Pei. He could not hurt her again. My brother's name is Lucas Lee. He said the Lucas Lee of the past belonged to Crown Princess Yuchi's Yuchi, and the Lucas Lee of the future would belong to Yumen Pass's Yu. Oh. My name is Oliver Lee. My grandfather was the emperor, and my brother is the emperor. Brother says I'll be emperor one day too. And you, what's your name? A child spoke to himself, facing a shadow on the palace wall. A distant voice drifted over. My surname is Pei. I come from Yumen Pass. I'm here to collect the remains of an old friend. Extra. Spring wind does not cross Yumen Pass. When father was alive, he often taught us that there are things in this world more important than one's own life and death. The land beneath our feet, the dignity of law, one's duty, a clan's honor, a soldier's loyalty, the people's safety, a nation's stability, the pride in one's bones. One day, you may also meet something that must be defended with your life. When that day comes, I hope you can make a choice that does not shame the Pei clan, and does not shame yourselves. So it wasn't that I had to die, it was that I had no choice but to die. Because innocence can only be proved with blood. Of course I could have set Chengqing Palace on fire, changed my identity, and fled the deep palace. But once rumors exist, if I vanish in some strange way, then whether the royal family wants it or not, the histories will leave their doubts. People will relish the story forever. Even if there is no official record, there will be unofficial tales. They would imagine endlessly. They would keep rewriting my story with Luke. And whenever Luke is mentioned by later generations, they would immediately think of his concubine mother. In their eyes, he would become an absurd emperor who inherited after his father's death and ignored all moral order, even if he never did. Our Luke is a man like pure ice under an autumn moon. His mother once fought for the nation. His father also died for the nation. How could he, after his father fell in battle for the country, turn around and take his concubine mother? He didn't. He simply didn't. Since he didn't, I could not leave the world even a sliver of space to imagine. Not only did I have to die, I had to die plainly and clearly. Only if I died openly could I prove Luke's innocence and my own. Strange, isn't it? As if innocence in this world can only be proven this way. I wanted to use this method to tell the world that my Luke was innocent. He wasn't absurd. He understood moral bonds. He managed well the golden age the crown prince and her grace left behind. He did not merely stand on his elders' shoulders and indulge himself. I want later generations, when they see him, to think of his achievements and ability, not that suggestive whisper of the concubine mother. I died for that. I accept it. I am of the Pei clan, and the Pei clan has no people who live by compromise. Luke and my brothers all bear the medals of their fathers, each guarding the people in their own way. I merely did the same. In the end, my death can't be blamed on anyone. Should I blame Luke for being close to me? But I was his last support. Should I blame the Grand Empress Dowager for giving me poison? But she did nothing wrong, and she gave me a choice. Or should I blame the former emperor for assigning me to the Eastern Palace? In the eyes of the world, It truly was a good match, and the crown prince and crown princess treated me with all their hearts. I was born with honor. I lived in splendor. I grew up in a golden age and died in a golden age. Everyone loved me. That is already great luck. So even if things ended this way, I blame no one. I only blame this: spring wind does not cross human pass. But in the end, who was it singing? Midnight, in a lonely dream, I return home. Midnight, in a lonely dream, I return home. By the small window, you're combing your hair. We look at each other without a word, only tears, 1,000 lines.